think what's so exciting about the plan comparison to me is that if you imagine that you're shopping for a self-funded plan, sort of shopping for that product, it can be really hard to kind of discern uh, the trade-offs between different options there. But if you have a standardized benchmark, which is what this price transparency gives you, that's what you'd want to compare against. And then in this Gigasheet visualization, you can put them side by side and get that sort of delta, that difference, that comparison point presented visually and get a really quick sense for, the Athena Consulting option A versus option B if you were to run two different plans against that benchmark. So I think that's just that's a really powerful capability. That's kind of a step beyond just having access to the rates. To really do that comparison and see that visually can be a really, really nice way to evaluate products.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to explore something visually than it is to just like look at it, yeah, especially a table of data because spreadsheets are awesome. I mean, our whole back end and a lot of our user interface, as you saw, is based on the ability to pivot and filter huge data sets. But it's really hard for us as humans to understand, a billion data points. But when you aggregate those up, those several billion data points into a map and dots on the map, it starts to make more sense. Historically, a lot of this work has to be done by code or analyst or analytic workflows. And our goal is to just make that much, much faster, or provide interactive speed of thought, ability to query, pivot, dig into the data, export it if needed, and move on. And the analysis that used to take months to do things like plan comparisons now takes a few minutes. You have to get the data selected correctly. And I think we were talking about this the other day, Garth, like data selection. What was it that you said? It was like, is
You
always
ask
the
any
hardest
data
problem.
scientist, ask any
Yeah.
scientist whether the majority of their time is spent on the fancy math and the statistics and making the pretty picture out of it. No, any data scientist will tell you it's 80% or more of their time is just data preparation. Find the data source, get the data in, get it into one shape, remove all the crazy garbage that's always in there from somewhere. But typically, that's the bulk of the work for any sort of data analysis task. And then once you have some data, then you can go and do sort of the fun part and do the math and so on. So, having this data, prepared in this way is a huge boon.
For sure. So, as I mentioned, there are a lot of different angles. There are a lot of different ways people use this data today. And really, the whole goal behind price transparency is to try to help give ultimately consumers better information, but also help. The thesis is that more transparency in this historically opaque market will drive better competition. And so, whether you're negotiating on the side of a provider or a payer, you should expect that the people on the other side of the table are absolutely going to be using this data. Or even if you're selling medical devices or are building a network, that this information will be used by your competitions.